All right, this talk may get a little ranty and rambly because I'm just chatting here while I'm unpacking my groceries, but I'm just thinking to myself about how excited I am to be back in the kitchen. And I mean, I love cooking. I always have. But I decided back in 2011, was in personal training school, and I was obsessed with my weight. I was obsessed with my body image. And I was obsessed with that number on the scale, and I fell into these awful habits of constantly tracking my food, weighing myself, counting calories, and that really was the start. 2011, it's currently 2019, that's 8 fucking years, basically. I'm gonna discount last year, though, so let's say 7 years where I really was hyper-focused on food in some way or another. And even though I was hyper-focused on it, I still was always binge eating sugar, drinking alcohol a ton. I've always had always loved pizza. And so it was like I had these mentalities of how I wanted to be with food, and I was creating this new relationship with food and understanding what it was doing for me, but I never had that underlying factor that I faced of like, well, why does it have to be all or nothing? And at least looking at it like that to start, but then realizing the mentality that you fall into when you do an all or nothing reset. You have tons of restriction that does not encourage any type of sustainable or regenerative growth pattern in your life, and you just get stuck in kind of like these swirls of feeling like you're a failure. And the caveat for me was the fact that I always told myself that I wasn't a failure and that, everything's part of the growth process, and I really knew that. But at the same time, honestly, I don't remember telling myself, I never have told myself, you're a failure, you're back at square one. It's really hard because I don't feel like I've directly told myself those things, yet I lived them. I remember specifically sitting in my bedroom feeling like a complete fucking failure, and not necessarily telling myself that, but just feeling completely deflated and exhausted, and just I had tried everything, and here I was just binge eating sugar again. What the fuck is wrong with me? That's the question that really came. Not so much am I a failure, but what is wrong with me? And why can't I keep doing good and keep moving forward? And I did get caught in the Whole30 cycle where it's just do another reset. Just do another reset. All you need to do is another reset. And I'm sorry, you guys, but no, you don't. That is not the answer. And for me, I mean, there's no one size fits all. There's no one answer for everybody, but something that I think we could all use a little bit more of is self-compassion. And really understanding why we choose to do the things we do. And when we choose to make a life practice in self-care and getting to know ourselves better, and in my definition of self-care, it is synonymous to body positivity, body neutrality, and self-compassion. Because it's a lifelong commitment of learning what works for you. And it took me about 7 years of these cycles, these in and out cycles, of finally realizing that doing resets does not work for me. And when I kind of had this epiphany last year of just really realizing I was off the wagon again, which I freaking hate that term now, because there's no wagon. There is no wagon. I literally have just been totally pulled back and off. I've been totally off of my food game at all, because I've been so in it for so many years that I've just been wanting to, all of a sudden I was like, I don't even feel like cooking, because when I think about cooking itself is fun, but I don't want to think about what I want to eat, what the nutrient quality of the food is. It turns into a huge deal instead of being this second nature thing that I want to choose this and it gets to be fun and it gets to be enjoyable. It's like for example, today. Oh, my phone's ringing. Hold on. I got a little grumpy butt that really just wants all the cuddles. Ooh. So what I'm trying to say is that basically that food should be enjoyable and that it shouldn't be this judgmental thing. But that's kind of what all these years of like resets and even studying food. I mean, it's kind of, I heard this joke from somebody that's a medical student, and they were joking about all the pathologies all the medical students, you can get like hyper focused on, like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? And it's kind of the same thing with food. And I've just realized that I have some tendencies that I do not like, and that I really want to move to get away from them. And to do that, he's being playful. And to do that, I felt like I really needed to pull back from food for a long while. It's basically been about a year. And work on myself, work on feeling good about who I am and what I'm doing and how I show up in the world, which is why I've pivoted my business to be more of a focus with self-compassion and self-care in this life process. And what I was going to say before my phone rang is that today I was at the grocery store, and this lovely woman, there is nothing about her that made me feel like I needed to cast a judgment. And I wasn't even paying attention to her or the teller, but they were chatting, and she had asked something, and the teller was like, oh yeah, you'd like, cause that cherry pie is like with the grocery store. And I like looked in the basket and I saw this cherry pie, and my first thoughts were, that is so glutinous. Gluten is so poison. Like, I can't believe that's what's on our grocery store shelves. And I just I kind of took a breath, and I said it again. Obviously, this is all to myself. And I was just like, what poisonous thoughts those are. Like, how dare I just automatically assume that, and so I'm like, how dare I automatically assume that everybody has a gluten issue? And then the nutritionist side of me is like, well, everyone probably does, because gluten's really freaking bad for you, and it's contaminated with all these chemicals and all this shit. And then I'm like, okay, I have to like pull back from my nutritionist self for a second and say, okay, maybe that is true. But there's also intention and happiness and like wanting to live your life. And I definitely think that if you truly believe that you are living a very healthy and happy life, and you don't have any second thoughts about what the fuck you're putting in your cart, and you're just like happy and doing all this stuff, like that chemistry, that vibe of like lifting yourself higher allows your body to be able to work better. And there's even a study that was done with this, with like a little town, I forget the name of it, but there's a little town in Pennsylvania that the like doctors for a long time could not figure out what was like wrong with this town, because nobody was dying of heart attacks, which is like the number one thing that people die of, or like, I'm freaking butchering this story, but that's basically what it was. And what they ended up diving into and looking at is like what everybody was doing. And it was like a little Italian town or something like that, and everybody was eating pizza and drinking a ton and like smoking and doing all this stuff that was awful for their health, yet they had a community and they socialized and they really enjoyed their quality of life. And I just really believe that our quality of life and our thoughts and the way we perceive life has such a huge, bigger impact on our lives. And obviously nutrition and food play a huge part too. But I just think that there's a bigger picture at play that we need to look at, and getting hyper focused on one little area isn't going to do anybody good. And so it was really eye-opening for me to realize this about this stranger that I don't even know. And it's like, how often do we talk about other people and ourselves, and we place these judgments? And that's the entire reason why I had to pull back from all of the food stuff for a while and reevaluate myself and my relationship with myself and my choices. And honestly, it's like, it's really hard for me still coming back to food, and like, because it's frustrating for me to see what is on the shelves and what is firsthand option, and to choose the quality that I want. It can be frustrating. And especially now, I try to kick myself when I'm down. I'm like, well, you've been out of practice for a year because you just decided to give it up. Compassion always wins. You have to come forward with love and understanding. That is what we are literally wired. We're wildly wired for it as human beings. And I just wanted to share this little piece, having just got home from my own grocery haul. Super stoked to get this together. I use the Real Plans website to help to help plan my groceries, and it's amazing, and I'm really excited to dive in here. I really want to try and keep this joy alive and spark it, and I know all of the things, how food is good for me and meal planning and all of that really helps with my life, and I can see now that it really is a missing key element in my life. So I'm excited to get myself back into the kitchen, get myself cooking because I love it and it's fun, and you know, maybe even challenge myself to try some things that I am not used to cooking. And all of this to say that obviously dietary issues are real. Gut problems are one of the biggest leading things in our entire world as we're working to sterilize everything in our entire world. That's just not how life thrives. If you think about your gut microbiome, it's very similar to how our soil should look, very nutrient dense, and all those worms and bugs and stuff in there, those microorganisms creating a healthy soil. We need all of that in our gut as well. But yes, a lot of times the food we eat and the stress that we carry together does not make for a good internal environment. I don't know if you can hear Kitten playing around with shit on the floor. It's noisy, whatever. Mostly, I just want you to love yourself, and if you have signs and symptoms popping up and you feel like you have some issues that you need to explore, by all means, yes, you should explore it. You should get some assistance, dive into that, but whatever you do, please just be careful that you're not picking up these dogmatic behaviors and these judgments for yourself or other people. Like, we've just got to continue to find what works for us and go with the ebb and the flow, and definitely don't give a fuck about the stranger in front of you and what they are buying at the grocery store. Just feel happy and abundance that we are at the grocery store and we can both afford groceries, because there's lots of other people out there that have much bigger problems than whether or not it's the right pie.